Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Kim with Creative Crafticality, and today I have a Dollar Tree fall decor DIY for you using these items here from the Dollar Tree. I also have glue and paintbrush and wood filler that I just have in my stash that I'm going to be using as well. So stick around if you want to see what I make with all of these. Alright, to start off, I'm going to disassemble my pieces here. I'm cutting the hangers off of these and then pulling the heart pieces off. This is actually going to be on the back of my sign, but I want it to be flat so that they'll glue together properly. So I'm going to take some wood glue and go along the edge there. This is optional, but I'm going to stick these together, and then I'm going to go in with some fat popsicle sticks and hot glue them down onto the top, and that'll just make it extra secure. And I just put 3, I believe, down each seam. And then if you want to, you can paint the back of this just to make it look a little bit better, but mine is going to be leaning up against the wall, like on my buffet, and leaning up against the window in a place that you can't see the back of it. Now I'm just taking some sandpaper and sanding that where the glue came out there, just so it'll be easier to paint. And I have some wood spackle here, and I'm going to just fill in the holes at the top. I want the seams to still be there so they look like wood planks, so I'm not filling that part in. This wood spackle I picked up at Walmart, I believe. I think it was around $2 or a little bit more than that. But it starts out purple, and then when it dries it turns to kind of like a beige color. I believe you can buy different colors, and this one was just a beige, so that's what I picked up. It says to let it dry overnight, but it was in about an hour. It was pretty much dry enough for me to paint. While that was drying, I decided to go ahead and cut the thankful part off of that sign, and I'm just sanding the edges down here. And now I'm going to just start painting both of these items. I have this turquoise color paint. This, I think it was a Waverly paint. So I'm painting the thankful with the turquoise, and I ended up painting 2 coats on this. And then while that was drying, I wanted my truck to be the same color, so I'm painting the body of it that turquoise color. I also ended up painting 2 coats of the turquoise onto the truck as well. If you haven't ever picked up these wood pieces from the Dollar Tree, they actually take the paint really well. So they're a lot of fun if you have a child who has a party or whatever, and they want to make a project. These are just a simple way for them to do that. You just pick up a few colors of paint. Most Dollar Trees now have some acrylic paint, so, and the brushes and everything, you know, to make a fun project like this. Now with my black, I'm going to go in and paint the tires there, or the wheel, yeah, the tires. I'm just painting the outside of the tire black, and then I will go in with a gray and do the center. Now with the white, I just used the black that was left over on my paintbrush and added it into the white to make the gray. I have this brown color. This was some new paint that I'm trying. They had it in the dollar section at Target. It's a very thin, it doesn't really cover very well. So to me this looked like a stain, like what, you know, it worked its purpose for my project because I was actually doing it on wood there, on that wood part of the vintage truck, so it looked like stain, but it's not a very opaque or thick paint. So just to give you that idea, they are $1 a piece, and I equate them to be about the same quality as the cheaper Craft Smart at Michael's. This was a bright orange, also from Target, but I added some brown into it to make it a little more, a richer orange color for the pumpkins. I ended up putting a third coat, as you can see on the Thankful, because it didn't quite cover the first couple times since it was originally black. And then there I'm going ahead and painting the truck one more time. Using the gray, I'm going in and adding some details to the truck, just so it adds some dimension to it. I went around pretty much all the edges with the gray, and then later on I go in with some white just to add some highlights onto it. I'm touching up right now with the turquoise, just in the spots that I thought needed a little bit more color. And then going in and adding the detail again. Just a rule of thumb when you want to add the detail like this, the shadows and the highlights, along the bottom will be darker, and then the top is where you want to add the white or the lighter color, just so that's where the sun is shining down on it. And generally you want to pick like a sunspot, like where the sun would be up above the truck, and kind of gear your, say the sun was to the left of the truck, then your white parts would be on the left side and the top, and then the dark shadow parts would be on the back and the bottom. Now I'm adding some gray to the brown just to make this a little bit darker, add a little bit more detail to the wood panel parts of the vintage truck. And then now I'm adding some more white highlights, and I just love how that added so much detail to the truck. So I'm going to do the same thing with my Thankful sign. Go in and add some black, or kind of a grayish color. On this one, I decided to do my darker colors along the left side. And the lighter colors on the right, or the top. Also on the thankful sign, there's pieces of the lettering that kind of loses detail with the cutout of the wood, so I'm adding that in with my gray and the thin paintbrush. This is a totally optional part of this DIY. You could totally just do a flat paint one color on each of the elements, but I just love to make it look a little bit more dimensional and add a little bit more detail. But I think even if you didn't add this, it would still look totally cute. Now onto painting my large board that I'm going to be putting these two elements on. I'm using some Waverly Ivory chalk paint, and I'm not sure if you can even buy this anymore. I don't think, no, I know Walmart does not carry it in the stores anyways. You may be able to order it online. But I sanded off the spackle, and then I'm using one of my sponge brushes and just brushing this on the entire back side of those three signs. So the other side of this has the popsicle sticks. And then I'm taking some of the brown and going along the two existing seams from the boards, and then I'm adding more seams in between them. I'm just going down the centers of each of those boards to make it look like more of a paneled wood look. And then going around the edges. And I also add a little bit on the corners just to make it look a little bit rustic. And then kind of doing a dry brush effect, adding some grain to those boards to make it look a little bit more like wood panels. Now taking the mini Jenga blocks, I am lining them up along the edge of my board. Originally I wanted to just frame it like this and attach it to the sides of the board, but then after lining them up, I figured out that I would have to cut pieces to make it fit right, and also it would have been a little bit more difficult to glue them along the edge like this as opposed to putting them on top of the board on the edge. So I did ultimately fit it together and not have to cut any pieces, and it fit perfectly on top of the board around the edge. And I did like the way that the little bit, like the height of the Jenga on top, better than if I'd had it going around like this. But I do glue them together end to end, and I fit them up against the board just to keep them straight, so you know they would be in a straight line, but I didn't leave them around the edge like that. You'll see in a second what I mean. And depending on the size of your original boards that you use, the amount of Jenga blocks will be different for whatever, you know, for each piece if you don't find this size. So you can use whatever boards you find at the Dollar Tree and, you know, because I know that sometimes not all Dollar Trees are the same. Can't always find the same signs. So yeah. So now I'm just trying to fit them together and keep them up against each other so that the wood glue would dry. And this is the wood glue purchased from the Dollar Tree. I think it works great. So it's I think it's Super Glue brand. And I'm doing this in sections and letting, like, I'm gluing like 2 to 3 together at a time and then letting it dry for a little bit and then gluing the bigger sections together. It just ends up being easier that way and they don't fall apart. But just still trying to keep them up against the side to keep them straight. Sometimes you may need to go back in and add a little bit more glue, you know, just in case it kind of comes apart, but that's not a big deal. I let them dry for a couple hours and now I'm going in with my pieces and painting them before I glue them to the top of the sign. So I'm using the same brown that I had found at Target and just painting all of the sides just in case it should. You'll see 3 sides, but I believe I just painted 3. Anyway, you don't have to paint the 4th side, but I did paint the edges and the 3 sides. Now taking the pieces after they're dry, I'm going to be gluing them on the top and the bottom and then on the 2 sides. They did fit together to where, or I just kind of fit them together so that one side of a piece fit at the top, like you can see on here, on the top left it fits on the side and then on the right it fits on the end. I hope you understand that. It's kind of hard to describe, but you can see what I'm doing. And I'm using my wood glue and I'm just going to glue that on top of the edge there on the sign. I'm going to try and fit them together, make sure they're straight, and let that dry. And now I'm going to glue down the thankful sign. Just make sure there aren't any paint pieces that were kind of stragglers. And I will be using my wood glue because just to get the hot glue, you could use hot glue, but it's just a little bit harder to get that much hot glue on the little pieces like that without it being a mess and without part of it drying really fast. So that's what I did on that. And then I went ahead and used the wood glue on the truck as well. I just think it's a lot easier. You have more flexibility as far as moving it around and figuring out where you want it. Alright, so here it is staged on my buffet. I just love how this turned out. I added a little tiered tray there and my candlestick pumpkins, and I just love this. I put it center on the buffet and I think it turned out great. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. This is Kim with Creative Crafticality. Bye. God bless.